Welcome to another episode of New Orleans Basketball. I'm your host, Raphael Rattler, breaking down last night's New Orleans Pelicans win over the San Antonio Spurs 109-103. The Pelicans got off to another slow start with a rough first quarter, shooting just 0 of 8 from 3. Zion Williamson only had 2 points. They had 6 total turnovers and finished the quarter with just 16 points. Then insert Jose Alvarado yet again. He brought energy, he brought passion, he brought defensive activity, he was pushing the pace offensively. He brought life to the Pelicans team after not starting very much to start the game. Overall, let's cut to a chase. It was a very ugly game, another rock fight versus the same opponent, but everyone contributed. 4 of the 5 starters were in double figures. 5 total were in double figures. The Pelicans had 19 turnovers and only 25 assists, so the ball didn't move a ton except to the other team or out of bounds. But the Pelicans found a way in the second half to get stops, to get running, to get out in transition, and actually beat the Spurs in transition points 23-5. This is the winning formula for the Pelicans, regardless who's on the court. They are a defensive team, even though they've suffered on the defensive end so far this season. But when they get stops, they're a super fun team to watch. Speaking of super fun to watch, the newcomers shined in this one. Bruce Brown had his best game in a Pelicans uniform. He had 8 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, and was a plus 20 on the plus minus category, which is best on the team. He brought energy on defense. He got into guys instead of just letting guys get wherever they wanted on the court. He had active hands and really helped rise the tide for his Pelicans roster on the defensive end of the floor. On offensive end of the floor, it's still a work in progress. He's airballed quite a few threes so far since joining the Pelicans. He airballed another one last night, but he brought force and played downhill and got all the way to the rim, which is something you haven't seen so far in his Pelicans tenure. Let's see if he can continue to build off this and grow off this and see what type of player he can be as the season rounds up. Kelly Olynyk had another good game. He just does all the little things well. He only had 6 points and shot just 1 from 6 from the field, 0 2 from 3. Hesitated a little bit on a couple threes. I think a lot of that has to do with him getting adjusted to his new team and understanding what the pecking order is, but also having to understand that there's a reason why he's wide open. There's a reason why he was traded for, to shoot without hesitation. I think this will get better and better the more games that he plays in a Pelicans uniform and the more he gets accustomed to his teammates. He did have 12 rebounds, including 5 offensive rebounds, which gave the Pelicans a lot more opportunities at second chance points. 3 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block. He makes so many winning plays, and he's fit so well, so quickly with this Pelicans roster. I'm very interested to see how his piece next to Zion and next to the rest of this team and this rotation looks as the season wraps up. Speaking of Zion, he had an offish night. So he had 6 turnovers to only 3 assists. He did play 29 minutes and 16 seconds, which is the most that he's played since returning to play in action after suffering his hamstring injuries. He only got to the free throw line 3 times, though. The ref really let them play in this one. You could see Jeremy Sohan. You could see that Harrison Barnes. You could see that all the Spurs were given the green light to be as physical as possible. But to Zion's credit, he started playing through the contact instead of looking for the whistle. And this is something that is a growth era for him. The nights when he doesn't get whistles, how can he use his strength, his ability, his force to just get to the rim no matter what? If they're not going to call it, they're going to let you play. I'm going to take Zion in a fight at the rim. So again, kudos to him for finding a way to still get to 18 points, to still produce for his team, even if it wasn't his best night offensively. But again, this is growth areas and growth times for not just the rotational players, not just the newcomers, but also the stars of the team. Speaking of the other star of the team, Trey Murphy finally got going. It was a tale of 2 halves for him. In the first half, just 4-11 from the field, 3 turnovers, and he just 1 of 6 from the three-point line. But in the third quarter, Willie Green let him play. He actually played the entire third quarter after getting off to a hot streak. He had 10 points. He was 3 of 8 from the field. He had 2 blocks, 2 steals, and got to the free throw line 4 times. Again, with Trey Murphy, it's about what are the other things that you can do. There's going to be ups and downs from a playmaking and from an efficiency standpoint as he learns to be a main option on this roster and on this team and the main focal point for defenses. But how he's able to settle in and impact the game in other ways will be something that is important to note for his growth. He sometimes settles a little bit for jumpers when he doesn't get the foul calls or he's not able to finish at the rim. But to see him continue to grow and continue to trust his game in terms of putting pressure on the rim, that's what you're looking for. Another area is the boards, right? Last game, he had a strong board game. This one, not so much. When he attacks the boards, it allows him to start the break. So he doesn't have to rely on someone to pass him the ball in the half court, and he doesn't have to move off the ball. He can initiate the offense and will give him more looks for himself. Plus, he's a tall guy who can jump out the gym. So the more he attacks the glass, and Zion and everyone else on this roster, the more opportunities he'll have to touch the ball in advantageous situations. Unfortunately, even in back-to-back wins where the Pelicans haven't been able to say in quite some times, they still cannot hit shots. Shot creation on this roster is quite the issue. Outside of Zion, Trey, and CJ, no one else really can consistently create their own shots. As far as the shooters go, and CJ McCollum, Jordan Hawkins, and Trey Murphy, they were just 19 for 48 from the field, 5 for 23 from 3, and only went to the free throw line 7 times. Again, these are the 3 guys that the Pelicans are looking to score and to hit open shots, and they've been in a little bit of a slump over the last couple of games, but the Pelicans have still found a way to find wins through their defense and through getting to the paint with Zion and the bigs. Now, in terms of the upcoming draft pitch, with the Pelicans are in a prime position to get a really good young player in a loaded draft. That player needs to be another athlete to go along with the rest of this roster that's full of athletes. Needs to probably have a bigger body because the Pelicans have a bunch of smaller guards. But most importantly, needs to have the ability to create for himself and for other players. With the departure of Brandon Ingram to Toronto, that this team, whether folks are injured or whether someone is on the bench, needs more shot creator and more shot creations so that everything isn't reliant upon Zion or Trey Murphy to ultimately generate offense. Speaking of generating offense, Brandon Boston was announced by Sean Sarania of ESPN of getting a 2-year contract with his 2-way option being converted to a standard contract. The Pelicans must have saw the first quarter and called Brandon Boston's agent and said, you know what, let's get this done because they desperately need his shot creation and his ability to create for others. It's a 2-year deal, but really it's like a year and some change. And actually the Pelicans have the ability this summer to actually renegotiate and give him a longer term contract. The Pelicans actually have been missing his shot creation, especially with no DeJounte Murray and no Herb Jones so far since he's been sidelined with the hamstring injury and the contract situation. But I'm interested to see how he's able to come back after having career highs across the board in extended minutes with the Pelicans so far this season. Something else that jumped off the page for me last night was Willie Green and his ability to just try different things. He left lineups on the floor that were working in back-to-back games. This is something that has struggled a little bit so far this season. Obviously, he's been put in a tough situation with Zion on a minutes restriction and so many players down. But now, since these players are available and are healthy, what are you going to do with the talents you have? The Pelicans, even though it doesn't seem like it, have a deep roster. So how do you mix and match those things? And how do you let the game dictate what the rotations call for? Well, one thing you see him doing a lot is tying CJ McCollum and Trey Murphy together when Zion sits, just to pack the floor with as much offensive firepower as possible to avoid those lulls where the Pelicans just can't seem to find a bucket and settling too much on the three-point line. The most important thing, and the thing that's the most obvious, is that he's going with Z as a guard and as the point guard and going big outside of that, and it's paying off. It paid off again last night with Kelly Olynyk, Yves Missi, and Carlo Makovich all having solid games. The Pelicans out-rebounded the Spurs yet again, 54-45. They had 20 offensive rebounds, which again is outstanding for a team that has struggled in this area so much. Willie Green himself said after the game, we like our big lineups after this summer, saying that they were going to be small and play fast. Obviously, the season has not gone the way that they anticipated, and it's forcing them to course correct quite a few times. But this may be a silver lining where they found something that could lead to success, not only for the rest of the season, but also going forward as this Pelicans roster continues to grow. So all in all, It's a team effort and an ugly win. But let's see if they stick with the big lineup now that they're facing Phoenix in the upcoming back-to-back Thursday and Friday. Phoenix can light up the box score. They don't play a ton of defense. So how the Pelicans mix and match versus their star players will be important to watch. Zion most likely is not going to be playing in both of those games and back-to-back. So Brandon Boston making his return will be much needed for this Pelican roster that's been struggling to score consistently. The Pelicans head to Phoenix on Thursday at 9 p.m. But for all your latest news, updates, analysis, make sure you're locked in to New Orleans Basketball.